No, do not sell this on eBay.
I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Romulus Community Schools Board of Education scheduled for Monday, June 23rd, 2008 at 6:30 p.m. to order. We'll call roll. Mrs. Kraut?
Here.
Ms. Roscoe?
Here.
Ms. Freyer?
Present.
Ms. Buckley?
Here.
Ms. Lanasi?
Present.
Mr. Kuderik is absent, and Mr. Minkevich is present. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There will be a minor adjustment later on in the meeting as far as the agenda is concerned, but the agenda back there basically is correct. Next item would be the consent agenda items. Under the consent agenda, these are considered to be routine in nature by the Board of Education and will be acted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items. If any member of the board or any citizen requests discussion of an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will become the first item of business under the report of the superintendent's portion of the agenda. Is there anyone who has any discussion concerning the consent agenda? Seeing none, we will then need a motion and support.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda. Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Buckley, support by Mrs. Freyer, to accept the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes on a 6-0 vote. Now we move to the next section, which is report of the superintendent. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. First presentation we have on our agenda is we have Ms. Becca Lewis here. She's going to give us an update on the league. Becca, come on up and take the microphone and stand by the tape there.
Hello? Okay. I'm actually here today with a student from the high school. This is Victoria Mangrum, and she's going to help me out with my presentation. We're supposed to have a few other students with us, but unable to make it. So, as you may recall, I was here back in January to talk about my position as an AmeriCorps Vista working for the league in the Romulus schools. And I came in today with Victoria. We came in to give a little update on how the year went in service learning and what great accomplishments the Romulus students are making. So what we have here is a packet of information. The first, along with my business card, is a pamphlet on more information about the league and the website and how you can access that. And then we have our season of events card from this past year, which will be changing. But what I want to get to is the special report that I created about the whole year and how it went. The first page, again, is just an update on how the league is used for service learning and how it promotes students to do good in their own community. And it ties that to curriculum, which is tied to state standards. So it's a very great tool for teachers to use. The second page is where I have some highlights of some great things that have gone on in the district. And I'm going to run through a couple of these really quick. With the King Day event in tie with the rest of the community, students at all of the schools in the district created posters which were displayed and were amazing to spread Dr. King's message. In Art for the Heart, we did a lot of projects in different classrooms tying civics lessons and social studies lessons to creating works of art and poetry which were donated to many different places across not only our community but also the world, because some cards were made, and they were sent all the way over to Iraq and Afghanistan for soldiers. Earth Day lessons were taught, tied to state curriculum, and students cleaned up at local parks. They cleaned up outside in their own schools and did many other environmental stewardship projects. The Penny Drive event, which was a highlight at Barth Elementary, they actually created a walkathon, which the students raised money for the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life. They raised almost $2,000. Along with that, there is a student at Barth Elementary who has cancer, and her mother went around to classrooms teaching the young students about what cancer was, and it was a great lesson for students, and they learned how to give back. The last thing on this page, number 2, is about our community partnership when working with the Detroit Pistons and the Detroit Shock, who've donated over $5,000 worth back into the Romulus community schools. The third page, I have just a little highlight about different wild card events, which are the events that take place out of our regular season of events in the league, just fun activities which are tied to curriculum that the students have done. On page 4 and 5, I did a little summary of the points, which is how we track the results and how students are giving back. Each point would equate to $1 given back in time, treasure, and community engagement that the students do. And on page 5, if you actually look at the bottom, from our database I was able to pull up that the students in Romulus community gave back in their time, talent, and treasure $28,939.18 to the Romulus community. So that is a great accomplishment which we hope to continue the next year. So I'm going to hand it over to Victoria, who's going to talk about what we would like to see on the last page, number 6, for the next year in the league.
Okay, the first thing we want to increase is teacher participation in the middle and high school level. The great thing about League is teachers can log in students' time into the computer, and over time, the teacher can print out the transcript that can be given to colleges and jobs that will show what the student did in their community, basically. The next thing is the League players and events. We want to have connections with the newspaper, who will then show what we have done so far and what's going to be coming up in the next month or whatever time we put down. The next thing is the new community partnerships. We want to have communication between business organizations that will further our league activities. The Fall Philanthropy Fair. We will have service learning activities for students who can see what they can do in the community, and basically that's what that is, just to see what you can do for the community. The drive, which is about Thanksgiving time, collect food for the homeless and to teach about the hunger, nutrition, and more, basically.
So that's all we have for today. We just wanted to update you on the league, and I will be working here all summer, hoping to further engage the students in service activities tied to curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the okay, next we have Eagle Scout resolution.
I think one of the Eagle Scouts, we had 2, one can't be here tonight, that's William Blackburn. We do have Carl Roscoe here. I will have the privilege of reading the resolution, and Carl, you come up front. Romulus Community School District Board of Education resolution. Whereas Carl Roscoe has devoted much time, effort, and energy into achieving the Eagle Scout rank as a member of Boy Scout Troop number 872 under the tutelage of Scoutmaster Thomas Kuderick and Assistant Scoutmaster Officer Anthony Norman. Whereas Carl Roscoe has completed various activities with the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts, including camping and community service affairs such as food, clothing, bottle drives, pancake breakfast, and volunteering at the St. Aloysius Church Festival and Operation Can Do. He has attended years of camping, including the adventures of Cole Canoe Base, Pioneer Scout Reservation, and the National Scout Jamboree 2005. Whereas Carl Roscoe has progressed through the scouting ranks and has completed 22 merit badges for special activities such as fire safety, first aid, emergency preparedness, archery, camping, art, swimming, citizenship in the community, and citizenship in the nation and the world to become the 8th Scout to achieve the rank of Eagle Scout within Troop Number 872. Whereas Carl Roscoe has demonstrated leadership skills and passed an intensive peer review by other Scout leaders and community leaders from the City of Romulus and the Romulus School District. Now therefore be it resolved that the Romulus Board of Education, speaking on behalf of all the people of this community, does hereby tender this official resolution of congratulations commending Carl Roscoe for his outstanding achievement of earning the coveted Eagle Scout rank and his numerous community contributions, including the extensive restoration of the Veterans War Memorial Monument in the City of Romulus, given his 23rd day of June 2008. It's signed by myself, Kenneth Minkiewicz, as President of the Romulus Board of Education, and it will be signed by Secretary Tom Kuderick, also representing the Board of Education. Tom couldn't be here tonight.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Next, we have a resolution in appreciation of her 12 years of service on our Board of Education for Mrs. Lanassi, and I believe we have Board Member Buckley, who is going to read that resolution.
Yes. It's my
Better get my
pleasure
Kleenex.
to do this for Betty, so I'm gonna try to get through this. But Betty, I just wanna thank you, because when I came on the board, you took me under your wing and mentored me, and I really appreciate that. You made my transition to the board easier, so thank you. Romulus Community School District Board of Education Resolution. Whereas Betty Lanassi has faithfully served the students, staff, parents, and community as a member of the Romulus Board of Education for 12 years, and whereas Betty Lanassi has served the Board of Education in the offices of President, Vice President, Secretary, and Treasurer on multiple occasions, and whereas Betty Lanassi has been one of the most visible members of the board, often attending a variety of district functions such as concerts, art showings, recognition ceremonies, community charity events, school programs, moving up ceremonies, prom toasts, and athletic events. And whereas Betty Lanassi has always represented her constituents and the educational interests of this community in a positive manner, serving as an advocate for students, parents, and organizations. And whereas Betty Lanassi has further distinguished herself with leadership on the board personnel, policy, and climate committees, and whereas Betty Lanassi has always brought her welcome sense of caring to district functions and board meetings, and often helped to bring things into perspective with her keen analysis of circumstances and information. Now therefore be it resolved that the Romulus Board of Education, speaking on behalf of all the people of this community, does hereby tender this official certificate of appreciation, commending Betty Lanassi for her many contributions to the progress of education in this community, and extends gratitude and best wishes to Betty Lanassi and her family on a fulfilling future. And this is signed by the Superintendent of the School, Carl Weiss, and will be signed by Tom, the Secretary of the Romulus Board of Education.
We need to go back a step.
Yeah, to the scout.
We need to have motion and support for the, oh, I goofed it up and forgot it. We need a motion and support to accept the resolution for Carl Roscoe for his Eagle Scout rank.
Mr. President, I'll make the motion that we accept the resolution for Eagle Scout Carl Roscoe. Support.
Who supported, Buckley? We have a motion by Mrs. Frayer, supported by Mrs. Buckley, to accept the resolution commending Carl Roscoe on the Eagle Scout Award. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes on a 6-0 vote. Now, even though William Blackburn is not here, we probably should do the resolution accepting it. That way, when it's given to him, it's covered. So we need a motion and support for William Blackburn.
Okay, I'll make the motion for William Blackburn.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Lanasi, supported by Mrs. Frayer, to accept the Eagle Scout resolution for William Blackburn. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Again, the motion passes on a 6-0 vote. And now, we have a resolution in recognition of number 12 years of service for Betty Lanasi. I need a motion and support.
Make a motion that we accept the resolution for Betty.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Roscoe, supported by Mrs. Frayer, to accept the resolution of years of service for Betty Lanasi. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes on a 6-0 vote. And now, we are back to Superintendent Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next on our agenda, item D. It's my pleasure to make a recommendation to the Board of Education on behalf of the administration and the interview committee that the board appoint Ms. Linda Poirier as the next assistant principal at Romulus Senior High School. And I should also tell you that Linda is the culmination of a rigorous interview and search process. We had 12 applicants, and we interviewed 7 applicants, and Linda rose to the top. She distinguished herself during her interviews, which were held last week with the interview committee. And that's what our recommendation is based on.
Congratulations. Thank you so much.
We need a motion and support.
Mr. President, I will make a motion that we accept the appointment of the Romulus High School Assistant Principal.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Frayer, supported by Mrs. Lanasi, to accept Linda Poirier as Assistant Principal, Romulus Senior High School. Any board members with questions? Seeing none, we will take a vote. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Again, on a 6-0 vote, the motion passes. Welcome.
Congratulations.
You're one of the first women up there, as far as I know.
It's a pretty tough shoes to fill, too. Thank you.
Our next item is a recommendation for the purchase of some teaching materials. You have in your packet a list of recommended purchases for the fall of 2008, and I want to tell you that, just to remind you that the funds for those purchases are actually coming out of this current school year's budget. And you have an assortment there. We have social studies books for the middle school and also the high school. And then we are purchasing, actually entering into an agreement to purchase science kits for our elementary classrooms, 1st grade through 5th grade. And as part of the purchase, the company that we work with refills those kits, which is a major part of the work involved there. I think that's all I have to say.
It's out of next year's budget.
It is?
This is actually incorrect, yes. We create purchase orders based on 0809.
Okay,
So we submit them.
my mistake. So we need to correct that to
So-
0809.
So the budgets that you see today will not include them in your summer rate, but it will include them
So that, under budget implications, it should be items are budgeted for 2008 and 2009. Okay.
Isn't, oh, okay.
Okay, we need a motion and support for the purchase of textbooks.
I'll make a motion that we accept the motion for the textbooks
Support.
as corrected.
Okay.
Support.
We have a motion by Roscoe, support by Buckley. Any members with questions? I have one quick one. The second textbook, is that the only math book being purchased, geometry? Or is that to be put off for a year?
Oh, I just
No,
got done reading
That one, that's recommended for fall, and,
Okay.
Mr. Hurst, correct me if I'm mistaken, but my understanding is because, remember, this year's freshman class was the first class where everyone is required to take the algebra. So we bought additional algebra textbooks for this school year. Next year, everybody, all the 10th graders are going to be taking geometry, and I believe that was the reason for the purchase.
The following year will be algebra too.
Right, so
Okay,
we
so it's
phased
a-
in that purchase.
Go up each year, okay. Anyone else with any questions? Seeing none, we'll have a vote. All those in favor of the adoption of the purchase of textbooks, say aye, or yes?
Yes.
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 Aye and
Yes.
yes.
Any opposed, say no. We have a vote of 6-0, which passes the resolution for purchase of books. And next item is again the superintendent.
What about the roof?
Yeah, well, that's,
Oh,
or,
okay.
I'm sorry, or is Sherry covering it?
Yeah, I'll address that issue since that was put together by my office. There's a recommended motion to accept the quotes from Single Ply International of Michigan to do emergency roof repairs at the Romulus High School and Romulus Middle School for $101,300. This was a series of quotes that we received. We didn't actually have to bid, as it is an emergency situation in those two buildings, and we are awarding the quote to the lowest quoter. And this is not really preventative maintenance, it is to repair issues that we've had problems with for years. One happens to be at the high school principal's office now that he's leaving us and coming here.
I was just gonna say, I hope he doesn't expect a shower in this office like he has.
That's too much to expect.
He asked for an office for the waterfall.
And just to note, these items are included in the budget for next year, 08-09.
But they will be done this summer.
After July 1st. Once this is approved, we will contact the vendor for a date.
Okay, I'll make the motion for the emergency roof repairs at the high school and the middle school.
Support.
Have a motion by Mrs. Manassi, supported by Mrs. Frayer, to accept the bid for building repair on roofs at both the high school and the middle school. Any board members with questions or concerns? Mrs. Buckley?
Sherry, now this is, we talked about this before, but we just had to go out and get quotes, right? We talked about all that. Now, we took the lowest bid, so do we have references? Do we know about this company?
Yes, we've actually used this company for emergencies in the past. We had a situation in Hill Creek this year, and that was the vendor that we used in that building as well.
So you're satisfied with it?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we will take a vote to accept the repair of the two buildings. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. We have a 6-0 vote, motion passes. We can at least get some leaks fixed.
The additional item, in regards to item F, in regards to track repairs, that would be at the track at the middle school. As you know, there's approximately 100 yards of track that needs repair. We did use a consultant to figure out the best way to repair that track, and there were 3 scenarios listed. once again, these were quotes. One of the recommendations was to repair it with the black surface. The second was to repair with a red surface. And the third was to repair to resurface the entire track. We're recommending that we fix the 100 yards that are in need of repair with the black surface, because as of right now, it fits within our budget that we've set. That would be $27,000. The other option to replace the yards with the existing red color is $42,000. And we have budgeted only $40,000 for the repair.
Quick question. What would it be if they did the entire track?
I wouldn't say, I don't have all that information in front of me, but it was to the tune of almost, I wanna say it was almost $100,000.
That's what I would think.
Yeah, it was close to $100,000.
And the other thing with, if you went to the all red, the two reds still wouldn't match.
That's
would they?
correct. That's another issue we'd be facing.
We're basically dealing with the same kind of surface, though. It's not gonna make a difference from running from the new part of the track to the old part of the track as far as for the track runners.
Right.
No, and aesthetically, the part that we're replacing is the 100 yards along the home bleachers, which is where all the short distance races are conducted. So it kind of draws attention to that part, which is where, you know, a lot of the races are already. So we think aesthetically it will look okay, better than a mismatch, you know, because the two reds won't match because, you know, the color that's on there's been on there for a number of years and it's already faded.
Are they gonna take out a chunk of it and then refill that, or just patch?
No, it's
No,
gonna
no.
be, they're gonna take that 100 yards completely
So
off.
we'll just have an entire section
Yes.
that's black, and then the rest will all match?
And my understanding is it'll be symmetrical too, so, you
So
know,
it'll be somewhat
it'll-
even?
Even, yes.
And when are they planning on doing this?
We don't have a date yet scheduled. As soon as this is approved, the vendor will find a date.
Okay,
But
how
it will
long?
be over the summer.
Before the weather gets cold.
Yeah,
And what's the time frame on it? How long do they say it will take to do it?
I'm not sure.
This may be a lot to ask. Really, I don't know what that's gonna look like. What's the price difference again? I mean, can we get someone to draw that up for us with both colors? I mean, that's not asking too much, is it? Just so we can kind of look and see how off that's gonna look?
It would be a computer-generated form.
Right,
wouldn't it?
yeah. That's what I'm kind of looking at, is some kind of computer-generated sketch of what it's gonna look like before we go and approve something and then come to find out, why did we do that? I mean, I would hate to take heat over something like that.
My only concern again is that we're putting it off and, you know, this is work that gets done in the warm
Yeah.
weather.
Yeah, I just don't
You
know
want it
if I'm
done
gonna
by
rush
fall.
it.
And technically, how quickly do we need this? I mean, who's gonna use it next?
Well, we don't really, our phys ed classes use it, you know, when school starts. Track is in the spring, as you know. Maybe a suggestion to address Mrs. Freyr's concerns would be to approve this. We'll get the drawings to you, and if there are objections or concern about the way it's going to look, we can always revise this. That way we get the contractor locked in, because it would be the same builder either way.
I'd like to see it done before
I-
school starts,
Oh, yeah.
So
because
that's
you
my
don't
concern.
need all that tore up and everything when football season
No.
starts, and everything, and that is about the third week in August usually,
Well,
as
and-
far as games.
And you wouldn't have an opportunity to vote on this until July 28th now, because you just had your statutory meeting on the 14th, so it would put us back.
There's a lot of money put into that field over there. I'd hate to make a rash decision to hurry up and rush something and have it
Well,
look terrible when our community people have spent several tax dollars on that field. To have it look junked up doesn't make sense to me.
but to leave it as is junked up.
It's been like that though, Kevin.
Yeah,
Didn't
but
this
I
happen
mean, that's
yesterday?
why we couldn't do it in the spring, was because of the weather. You have to have so many days of, you know, a warm temperature and no rain and things. Because I know when Donnie checked into it, that was one of the concerns, why we couldn't do it in the spring, was we weren't getting the warm weather. That's why we, you really couldn't run track meets there. It was pretty bad, so.
And I imagine we could get those drawings to you fairly quickly. My concern is just locking in the contractor because, they get busy. And then if the board wants to reconsider and amend the motion to make it all red, at least we have the contractor locked in. And that would probably, my guess is your amendment would take place before they would start, start putting in the new track anyway. They might have already started tearing up the old, but that wouldn't matter.
They may have already started the project?
No.
Is that what you just
Save
said?
the
No.
time, decision.
Just taking off
Taking
the
the
old.
old ripped up stuff off.
It's up to you, Ken, I'm not ready to vote on it, but you guys can.
Well, I can see the point. We need to get it going, otherwise we're gonna be into the fall and not have it done, and then you get cold weather and you can't do it, then you can't do it in the spring, and we're back to the same point.
It's been like that for a while though, and I mean, to just rush something on, that facility over there is a lot of money to have it not look good. That's all I'm saying.
I don't see how it could not look good.
Yeah,
Red and black, I hate to bring this up, but those are my high school colors. It would look good. That was an awful long time ago.
Well, I think we should do,
I mean-
as Carl suggested, is to make the motion to get it started, lock in the contractor, get it in motion, and then bring us back. We can revise it later as to if we wanna go further. Because you're talking another $60,000
Yeah.
plus 70, 80,000 maybe? What do
It's
you,
it's about 15.
It's 15 to have it done
Just
in
to
red,
run
but the
red.
reds won't match. That's one thing the contractor
correct, but
guaranteed.
I think Gabriel was talking about resurfacing the whole track all the way around.
No, I never mentioned any of that, but my thing too is, there are several people that have that same exact track we do. And we only went out to 3 people. Somebody very possibly could match that up identical, maybe a little off because of the sun. You're saying no, Ken, but you don't know that, you don't
Well,
know
no,
contractors.
once
it's
So
the reason they
can we
can't
go
be-
out to more contractors? I'd like to go out to more contractors and see if somebody can match that up, maybe for even cheaper. We only went out to 3 because that's usually what we do, but it doesn't say that that's the limit. We can go out to more if we want to.
Well, the reason that it won't match is because if you take a look at the track, you can see where the black is coming through on the part that's red now. That's the part that they can't match. In other words, the new part would be all red. The old part is gonna be kind of modeled red
So
and
just
black.
worn.
So they would have to, the only way to match that is to redo the color on the whole track, which is the cost prohibitive option. That's why we thought better than have, you're still gonna see a new section in red, and then the old section, which is red with some black coming through. We thought it would be better just to, keep it simple and go to black, but we can look into that.
If you go to additional bids, how long does that take?
It'll take
Another
time.
6 weeks.
Yeah, it'll take time to put the bid documents together and then allow vendors enough time to reply to the bid, go through, select the vendor. Pretty much, to be honest, it's almost like starting over.
You would not have it for football season.
No.
And
Which-
probably not until next summer.
We don't need that for football season.
No, but
It wouldn't be-
you have to have it done for track. Track is early in the spring, and they can't
And
do
they
it
can't
if
do
it's
it.
cold.
That's right. I feel, you've done what you were supposed to do. You went out for the bids, you're accepting the lowest bid now, and I feel you ought to go ahead with it.
Right, and nothing against Sherry at all. You've most definitely done your job, probably over and above and beyond. It's just, there could be, all I'm saying is there could be someone out there who can match it up and maybe even at a lower rate. That's all
I
I'm
don't
saying.
think anyone would ever be able to match
Actually,
it.
yeah,
I
I would
would
think if they
contract it.
could, they would have bid on it, but I also wanna remind you that Mr. Morris, actually did a lot of the legwork on this,
Yeah.
and he worked with the track coaches, and so they were given an opportunity to provide input into this, they knew what our options were, And my understanding is they're supportive of that option, of our recommendation. So it's not just Sherry or me or even Don Morris, it's the people that use the track also.
What, you want a motion or something?
I mean, we need to know from your
Right.
perspective if you'd like me to proceed,
We
because
need
I have
some
to make a
direction.
contract with the vendor.
Personally, I think we have to go with what is proposed here, because otherwise I see us not having a track in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Back to, you know, the same problem.
I agree with that.
And we'll get some drawings to you in very short.
And, you know, being that the whole straightaway would be black, I don't really see, you know, a major problem with that. I guess maybe we go with a motion and support and vote and see what it comes out.
Can we, Mr. President, can we do something like, just so we can see some drawings before, I mean, we can do some kind of motion to get the ball rolling, and then how soon do you think you can get something to us?
I think if I called the architect tomorrow, I could have the drawings within a couple days.
Right, by the end of
It's
the
pretty
week,
simple.
probably.
It's like a CAD.
Mhm.
type of-
Okay.
I'm just
That
not
would be
sure it's gonna
acceptable
give
for-
you a real realistic picture of what it looks like until I
Yeah.
see the drawings. I'm not sure how they're going to turn out, but
Because I would suspect,
CAD
There-
drawings are pretty true to, I mean, you can get them pretty close to what things are gonna look like.
yeah, but I would suspect they're not going to be the faded red that
Right.
we now have
It won't be photographed
in their
quality.
drawings, you know, that's gonna be kinda hard to match up. They would be more of a, probably a brighter red in the black. But, you know, if we can get the drawings that quick, and then if we have a motion support vote now, and if somebody has some concerns, again, we could rely, you know, if everybody has a concern, then we start over. If one or two people have concern, then I guess we could go with what we had voted. But I can't see us putting it off, because we're already close to July. And,
Well,
it's
we've
something
had
that
that
needs to be done.
track in bad need of repair for a while, not just the past year.
No, the last 2 years at least.
It's been,
It's
Yeah,
simple.
because it's.
And it needs to be
keeping up
done.
more and more each year.
and the longer we put it off, the longer it's gonna take to get it done. We'll be another year out. And being that, if I remember right, on your drawing here that you had, you went with a little bit longer stretch, so it would go across the whole, bleacher area and look uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah, the goal is to make it symmetrical, so it's balanced, and it looks like it was planned.
So it's
that
not
way.
like it's just pieced in there.
Call it to a vote,
All right, we need a motion and support to go with the track as proposed with a roughly 100-yard section of black.
I make a motion that we,
Oh, well, if we go with the black, the cost is $27,000. If we go with red, it's $42,000, which still would not match the existing red. And if you resurface the entire track, you're somewhere in the area of $90,000 to $100,000.
And you know then, other than on the communication sheet, we didn't get any recommendation for a motion, so, you know that, right? Other
Yeah, I
than-
was just.
Other
it's-
than the summary, I had nothing in my packet so that we were even taking action. That's why I'm a little caught off here.
Well, it's on the
It's on the-
agenda as roof repairs and
And
track
it's on the
repairs.
communication, nothing indicates that we're voting on that.
with a picture.
Just as
Right
an
here.
I mean, it's not that big a deal, I'm just putting it out there.
Oh, you're right. Well, I guess our only other option is to table it. We can get the drawing and we can hold a special, quick special meeting. Probably wouldn't be until next Monday.
It's perfect.
Would
I'd
you
like
prefer to
to
do that?
I would, yes.
then you don't know. I don't know if I'd be here. I'm not sure about Tom with his work and stuff. I know
We
he's gone
can
to
make
a-
it for when we can all be here.
Yeah, we can make it for 5:30.
No, I'm talking about, I don't know if I could be here at all.
Oh,
right now. And that's, and like I say, I know Tom's work shift is changed where he works Monday through Thursday, but he works longer shifts.
Oh, we might even be able to have it, are you gonna be here on Friday? Are you taking one, or maybe even
Trying to be
Thursday?
here Friday, or Thursday.
Well, we can, we can try to coordinate that so that we have it at a time when everybody's here. It wasn't our intent to rush a decision on this, we're just concerned about, having something done for football season.
I guess I look at it as one is within our budget and one is beyond, a little bit over our budget. And we're making so
But that
many
was only
cuts in
3
other areas.
contractors.
But you're limited in contractors
I just
too.
wanna see what it look like, Ken. If you guys wanna vote on it, vote on it.
No,
Nobody's saying
but I'm
vote on
saying-
it. I'm just saying there's nothing in my packet that we were voting on that tonight, so if you guys. it's up
No,
to
I
you.
was just saying that you may not get any more than 3, because this is a specialized type process where you may not have a lot of companies that do it.
Then it'll be easier to make a decision.
Well, we had a motion.
Well,
Yeah, go with
we
it.
started with, I think Sandy started to make a
I
motion.
want to clear something though. The only thing that we could provide in at least a week would be the drawings.
Mhm.
We wouldn't be able to provide another list of vendors with
Right,
quotes.
yeah,
Okay,
I get
just wanna
that.
make sure.
Yeah, I get that.
Is that correct, Mrs. Kraut? That you had
Yeah,
started
I was
making-
ready to make a motion.
Okay.
That we go with the recommendation to repair the affected section with the black track for $27,000.
We have a support.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Kraut, supported by Mr. Lanasi, to go with the repair on the track using the black material at a cost of $27,000. Any board members with questions, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a vote. All those in favor of the motion, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no.
No,
So we have a motion, or a vote of 5 yes, 1 no, so the motion would pass.
We'll get to work on the drawings and, we'll communicate with you as soon as we have them.
okay, yeah, I'd still like to see them. Thank you.
Okay, again, Mr. Weiss.
Okay, next we have a motion is needed to approve our summer and winter millage levy for 2008.
Very happy to address that as well. First and foremost, the levy millages have not changed from last year. That's always good news to taxpayers. If you'd like me to, I could go through these. We do have a whole harmless millage, that's 8.99 mils. We authorize that for summer and winter collection. We have a non-homestead operating millage at 17.49 mils. That is placed in the summer tax roll. The state education millage is on homestead and non-homestead properties at 6 mils in the summer. And we also have a debt levy of 7 mils, and we collect on that in the summer and winter.
I move that the Board of Education adopt the Finance Committee's recommended levy for the 2008 summer and winter tax collection.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Kraut, supported by Mrs. Buckley, to accept the Finance Committee's recommended levy for 2008 summer and winter tax collection. Do we have any questions or concerns from board members? Just a quickie. Can you explain to the audience the difference between homestead and non-homestead?
Yes, non-homestead properties are commercial properties or second homes, and the homestead properties are actually homes, residences that taxpayers basically live in as their first place of home.
And if there is a difference in the total amount of taxes. The non-homestead pays more than the homestead.
And there'll be part of this is in the presentation, and I'm gonna give it a moment.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of adopting the resolution for the Finance Committee's recommendation of summer and winter tax, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. 6-0 vote, the motion passes. And-
Next,
Okay.
next we have Ms. Pazablu with a presentation for the, prior to the recommendation and vote on next year's budget, the 08-09 budget. She has a brief presentation for us.
Hopefully it's brief. First of all, we have to start off with our revised budget for this year because that always leads us into the next year. So I'll just talk briefly about the way that our finances have ended for the year. First, and you can't see this very well, do you want to hit the light or do you want to look in your packets? The audience won't be able to read. Okay. This just provides you a little bit of history for the year. Where we started is in the original column, what we revised in May of 2008, and where we ended up as a final financial picture for 2007, 2008. And you can see the big differences between, you know, the original and the revised column, and then as reflective in the final column, our fund balance is about $6.3 million, which is much, much better than we thought we were. Just to remind you, a couple of reasons for that is, you know, we started the year off thinking that we would lose 50 students. We didn't know where our state aid was going to be. And in general, going through the year, you know, I budget very conservatively at the beginning, and as we go through the year, we get the real picture of how things are actually going to look, including health insurance and utilities, some of the bigger items. So we'll just talk briefly about the little bits and pieces of the budget. First is total revenue. For 07-08, we were about $44,484,000. And as you can see, the different sections of how the revenue is sliced up, that most of our revenue comes from local and state, 91%. It just goes back to explain why we are so heavily, we rely so heavily on the funds that we get from the state and when we adopt a budget. This is the expenditure pie, and it's sliced in all the areas: salaries, benefits, purchase services, supplies. And as you can see, once again, salaries and benefits take up the biggest picture of how we spend our money here. It's about 91%, right? Yeah, no, 81% of our budgeted expenditures, which going into when we have to make budget cuts, we always look at salaries and benefits because that's where we eat up most of our funds. So once again, just to remind you that we are ending the year with about $6.3 million of fund balance. Of that, I'm recommending that we reserve about $2 million of that, $433,000 for technology, $780,000 for additional emergency roof repairs if needed, textbooks and curriculum, the $300,000, final early retirement incentive payment of $125,000, and our final REA obligation to pay back steps, which amounts to about $414,000. That will leave the district in a position to have unreserved fund balance of about $4.2 million. Once again, I budget very conservatively. The projections become more real. I've already stated this a few minutes ago. One of the things that I would like to point out that I haven't mentioned is that our subcontracting with PCMI for the individual positions, coaching, any supplemental types of positions. As of right now, we saved $92,000 in 1 year. I just wanted to note that. And that the reserves that were expended in this year were the ERI and the REA, once again, early retirement incentive, and the obligation to pay back steps to teachers, which amounted to about almost $540,000. Real brief, food services, nothing changed. We're still paying them the same dollar amount per year, and we're still charging indirect costs. This picture, or this slide will basically show you that our revenues exceeded our expenditures by about $4,200. And we do have a fund balance in food services of about $349,000. We are required as a school district to keep those funds in the food service program. We are not allowed to supplant them into general fund. In the athletic budget, that we will, we this year, for the first time, had third-party contracting, once again, PCMI, to pay our athletic coaches and workers. We did have slight increases in a couple areas. The athletic trainer costs are increasing. That just goes along with medical costs, things of that nature. And we had increase in use of security at several events. This slide just basically shows you what we bring in athletics, almost $25,000, what we spend, and what the general fund transfers into athletics to cover the expenses related to that program. Almost about $468,000. In regards to community education, right now the pool and latchkey are the biggest programs in that portion of the budget. We did start an afternoon latchkey for the first semester of school, but we found out that it was cost prohibitive for the remainder of the year and for future years. We just don't have the participation that we needed to keep that program running. Last and least, we finally are writing off the last My Friends and Me uncollectible revenue bills in the amount of, I'm afraid to say, $20,000. But the program this year was canceled, and you will probably never hear about it again. In regards to community education, those are programs like basket weaving, aerobics, fortune telling, things of that nature. We did experience a deficit this year. It was the first time ever, and it was due to lack of participation and the cost of the brochure and the postage to market to those programs. There's no guarantees you're going to get individuals to show up, but you still run the class. And this is just a slide again, shows out what our revenues were, about $1,700 for all of those programs. We spent about $50,000 or $60,000, and we had to transfer in about $58,000 from general fund to cover the expenses. Debt service, just to remind you, we levy 7 mills to cover the principal and interest. This slide just shows you that we bring in more revenue than what we need to pay the bills in relation to debt. And we have a nice fund balance there moving forward. And that's the end of that presentation. Are there any questions before we move into next year?
Sherry, I actually have a question on the roofs.
Okay.
We budgeted for next year emergency repairs of, I think it was, I can't see anything in front of me, so I'm going off just memory, $780-some thousand.
That's correct.
But this year we had several emergency roof repairs, and we only spent about $237,000. So is there something that you guys know about that we don't know about? Where
What all I'm asking is to put those funds in reserve in case we have a major catastrophe at one of our buildings, like the high school, that needs some major repair. We want to make sure that we have those funds in reserve so that we can act in a timely fashion to get them approved.
Okay, so I just
It's really precautionary, to be honest. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what happens, Carl?
I think I can address your concern, what happens to the rest of it. Virtually every one of our buildings needs a new roof except for Romulus Elementary. And so we're trying to take care of the most urgent situations first. They may not all be classified as emergency roof repairs. When we say emergency, that enables us to take a shortcut. The rest of that money is still intended for re-roofing purposes, but it would probably go through the conventional bid and RFP process.
Correct.
But we just don't know at this point. Our understanding is there are enough repairs necessary that we're kind of starting portions of new roofs in multiple buildings. Okay. And if we have another heavy snow season this winter, this coming winter, like we did last winter, I can promise you there will be more emergency repairs.
Great.
If not, we'll go through the RFP process and address it that way.
That's correct.
Okay, and that makes sense, but I was just kind of thinking, and it's not really a question for you, maybe it's a question for us as board members, and I'm totally speaking, I mean, I don't know what it would cost, but with that kind of money that we had left over, would it make sense or no to just take maybe, say, one building per year, since we're gonna reserve that much money anyway, and just take one school and replace the entire roof, so we don't have to deal with that for the next 10 years? Or is it really financially just more than what we even have? Is it more than
That you
$6
pretty
million?
much, you pretty much hit it on the nail on the head.
Okay.
It makes us real nervous to spend all the money on a building that doesn't have 100% of the need for the money when another building does.
Okay,
So it's really a game we have to play.
gotcha. I
What's-
just noticed the big difference, so I
Mhm.
wanted to bring it up, but thank you, you answered all
You're
my
welcome.
questions.
Okay, moving on to 0809. Within this presentation is also the tax hearing that we're required to do by law, so it'll give you a little bit more information about the tax levies. Just to remind everybody about the budget process, you know, we prepare a budget calendar, we gather requests from buildings, which are the site-based budgets. We compile the most current stated information, which changes all the time. We project student enrollment, we compile staffing issues, we forecast fringe benefit costs, we try to put together a preliminary budget in April, we prepare a budget reduction plan if that's necessary, and we update the budget up through Friday and provide you with something in writing in June. Just wanted to remind you what goes into general fund revenues. We have state aid, taxes that come from non-homestead and homestead properties. We have grants, investment income, tuition from summer school and adult education, and we rent some of our buildings, so we do receive revenue for that. This gives you a history of our foundation allowance. You can see that from 2002 to 2003, the differences. At the bottom there, you see 0809. We are forecasting this budget based on a 0 increase in state aid. It's very unpredictable right now. There's lots of numbers that are out there. But to conservatively budget, we feel it's necessary to leave the foundation as is right now. This gives you a picture of our student enrollment. At the bottom, in the periwinkle purple section, it shows you our schools of choice. Right now, our blended count is about 4,269 students, and that's what state aid is based on. That's 75% of whatever our September 2007 figure was, and what the 25% of our February 2008 number was, or is. Here's some more information on tax levy. I rolled through it during the previous resolution, but it just gives you the operating mills, 17.4899. The hold harmless mills, their debt retirement required to pay our debt and interest payments, and the total levies, total mills levied. And once again, it's important to note that those have not changed from last year. And there's your comparison. There's nothing new, nothing added, nothing has changed. A snapshot of what our expenditures, what things we expend money on: salaries, which include increments and steps, and staffing, fringe benefits, meaning health insurance, workers' comp. The retirement rate will be 16.54%, which is a decrease from last year, which was 16.72. FICA retirement, FICA. Technology costs, teacher supplies, transportation costs, grants, maintenance, and utilities all go in our expenditure side of the budget. And here's where we get into the meat of the budget. Some assumptions we had to make to put this together: that there'd be no increase in state aid per pupil amount, that we'd see a decline in enrollment of 200 FTEs, there would be staff reductions based on that decline in enrollment, that the retirement rate would decrease to 0.18% to 16.54%, that health insurance would increase approximately 10%, utilities would go up anywhere between 5 and 15% depending on the utility, and gasoline, which is near and dear to everyone's heart right now, I based a 20% increase on that. Just a few additional budget assumptions: that we are in 0809, we'll pay off our last severance package. This budget is based on the loss of Reading First funds for 2 buildings, and we do have some large capital expenditures that we will be placing into the next year. We'll be replacing 7 of our buses, roof repairs as necessary, as we talked about that a little bit. Technology, we're going to be in year 1 of 5-year replacement cycle throughout the district to repair computers. that we would spend another $133,000 on an email server and other miscellaneous items for technology. We would be replacing 2 of the trucks, a large mower, clocks and bells at Mount Pleasant, and of course, we just talked about the repair of the track. That was what was budgeted for that expenditure. And once again, we can look and see the piece of the pie. As you can see again, the local and state make up the majority of the revenue that we receive, and that's why we're so heavily, we so heavily rely on the number of students we have here in our district. The expenditure side, I guess the biggest thing to note again is the amount of salaries and fringes that we have in our district, and we rely so heavily on that portion of the budget. This just gives you, it's always interesting, insurance and retirement, you hear it a lot, but to put it in perspective, you know, we spend almost 20% of our budget just to pay our insurance and retirement for all of our employees. And as you can see, it didn't change too much from last year, but even a 0.1% is quite a bit of dollars when it comes down to expenditures. Actually, I have some notes. And once again, the insurance and retirement costs expressed in a cost per student. This year, it would be about $2,084 we spend per student just to pay for insurance and retirement. Last year, that figure was about $2,028. That's an increase of about 7.5%. And if you just look at the rate of inflation, you know that that's much higher than 3%, which most people find hard to believe. And this breaks the expenditures and revenues down per pupil. Many people like to see what we spend on a student. And you can see the differences between 07 and 08 and 08-09. And you can see in 08-09 that we're bringing in less than what we're spending per student due to good financial planning and prudency on the part of the board. We're going to be able to cover that $789 deficit per pupil with the fund balance that we're bringing in from last year. If we would not have had that, the district would have been faced with a major reduction plan again. And this just gives you a big picture again. There's our beginning fund balance, almost $41 million in revenue, $44 million of expenditures. You can see what type of deficit we would have been in, or that we will be in, but we have the fund balance beginning of the year to cover that we're reserving the $1.3 million, and we have an unreserved fund balance of about $1.8 million, which is about 4.2% of our total expenditures. And once again, I just wanted to remind you what we're reserving funds for, $300,000, which would be year 2 of 5 replacement, another $800,000 in roofs, if and when we need them, and another $202,000 of textbook and curriculums to cover the math project. I said this last year, but this is my favorite slide because it kind of shows you where we've been and where we are. You can see the peak in 07-08, the second column from the right-hand side, the $6 million that I've been talking about bringing in to 08-09, and you can see the decline. Although it's not a good thing, we're still right at luckily enough, we still have $1.8 million in our reserved funds. So although that looks bad, we're still able to preserve a stable unreserved fund balance, which is important. And you know, just to remind you the importance of why we need a fund balance. Our fund balance will be 7.16% of the 2008-2009 budgeted expenditures. The Michigan School Business Officials recommends a 5 to 15%. Remind you, our unreserved section is 4.2%. I think we've come a long way in the last 2 years. You know, for unexpected expenditures, operations, technology, if we have something really go wrong, we'll have the funds and fund balance to take care of it. We won't have to shut a building down. We can actually fix the roof or fix the heating and cooling. You know, a fund balance is good for cash flow reasons. For the first time in the last, 2 years, we will not have to borrow with the state. That costs us about $170,000 of interest expense when we've had to do that in the past. It's good fiscal management and it allows us to plan for curriculum updates, which is needed. Some things that we just want to keep an eye on, the state aid per pupil. We base the budget on 200 students. We hope that doesn't happen. I believe that's a worst case scenario. We'll keep an eye on that. A large number of tax appeals we have, and the state aid will capture some of the loss, which is good for cash flow. And that always important airport expansion issue that we've been dealing with the last several months. And I had this in a slide in a previous discussion, the last time we talked about budget. Just gives you some snapshots of what could happen if the state were to come through with some money from the best example, which would be that we'd get $71 a student with stable enrollment. We'd actually have $1.6 million more in our revenue. So there's some options if things, between now and in September are better than expected. Debt service, nothing really changes here. We're still levying 7 mills, and it's used to pay bond redemption and interest payments. This slide just shows you that we do bring in enough to pay our debt and retirement bills. In regards to food service, we're still continuing a contract with Chartwell's at no change at $1.20. We will charge indirect costs. The one thing we might want to look at, and I'll show you in the next slide, is we may need to review the current fee structure for students in 09-010. Here it shows our beginning fund balance, and in this slide it shows that our expenditures of about $1.5 million exceed our revenue of about $22,000. Basically, the program next year, I'm expecting it to run at a deficit level. Fortunately, we have a fund balance in that program, but it might be something we want to start to look at as the cost of insurance and salaries increase per contract. We have to decide as a district whether we want to continue to eat away at the fund balance or we need to address the revenue issue. School service fund, athletics, the athletic portion, continue with PCMI, and once again, we're expecting that the athletic trainer cost will increase. We're expecting to bring in about the same amount of revenue, to expend about $507,000, and the general fund will pick up $481,000 of the athletic fund expenditures. Community education, it's the pool and latchkey, and I know there's an item on the agenda tonight that you'll be deciding on whether to reduce or eliminate other community programs. The slide I showed you in the 07-08 presentation showed a negative deficit of $2,000. It's something the district needs to look at, whether we want to continue to supplant monies into that program. So for the first time in a long time, we expect the community service budget to revenues to equal expenditures. We're really going to be monitoring this very, very closely this year. The only programs we have at the moment are the pool, the latchkey, and community education. And my theory is if they can't support themselves, we need to look at addressing either eliminating, reducing them, or accepting the fact that the general education fund dollars will be used to pay for programs such as these. And I want to thank you and remind you and the district and the staff that the last 2 years have been a struggle, but I think you've done a wonderful job at fiscal management and getting us to where we are. We're able to spend some funds on capital expenditures, which we've needed for a long time, and I think that's a good move on your part. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Very thorough presentation.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we adopt the 2008-2009 budget for general operation, debt service, and school service fund.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Lanasi, supported by Mrs. Buckley, to accept the 08-09 budget. Any board members with questions or concerns? I had a couple comments. I received something from MASB late last week where they're talking about the state finally coming up with a budget for schools. But but they're also talking about, in some possible cases, allowing charter schools and some of these others to get the same funds that we get, which would hurt the normal schools. And one of the things that they also mentioned at other times is that this is an election year. So a lot of the legislators say they're in favor of supporting education and giving more money to education, but they won't commit that they'll stay there all year. It's very possible that after the election, they might cut back on what the state aid is. So it's really a tough job to come up with a budget and be kind of accurate, because you're always fighting people in Lansing. That was my spiel for the day. Anyone else?
You've had enough, Ken.
Well, hey, I gotta make do with my last shot. We've got a motion by Ms. Lanasi, supported by Mrs. Buckley. All those in favor of accepting the 08-09 budget, say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion passes on a 6-0 vote.
That was really great, Sherry.
Yeah, it was, thank you for
Yeah.
giving us more time on that too.
Thank you for putting it in layman's terms where it's very easy to understand.
Sure is.
And you have given this to us more, I mean, we've seen this several times before tonight, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Atta girl.
Okay, the next two items are discussion items. Sherry mentioned our concern with community ed classes. What's happening with community ed, and I think part of this is the fact that, we've reduced our administrative staff with respect to community ed, but the numbers have been dwindling. And I have an update for you. Pass those down. It just shows how the numbers have dropped from the fall of '06 until last winter. And what we would like to do is suspend operations with respect to community ed. I'm not asking for a vote tonight, but I just want you to be aware of the numbers. And Sherry pointed out that that program operated at a loss of,
Around $2,000.
that's why I'm remembering, yeah, $2,100.
The first time since I've been here that's happened, and we're looking at the numbers, you can see why. We still have to have a teacher. It's kind of like running a school. You have to have a teacher to run whoever shows up for class. So
Yeah.
if you don't have the revenue to support that teacher,
Well, a lot of people are going through the rec now.
Right, and that's why this is probably a good,
I mean, it
a
makes
good time to
sense.
maybe pass that
Mhm.
responsibility on to, the community rec. They have a new facility and they have
Right.
momentum and a
And
marketing
they're
staff.
offering a lot more too.
And the economy too.
yep,
Yeah,
that's
there's a lot to do with it.
definitely.
And, we'll always be looking if we feel the timing is good to bring something like this back, but, we have to commit several $1,000s to produce a very nice brochure and everything else, and those are advanced planning things that we would have to get into place in order to offer this again in the fall. And our recommendation, like I say, is just to suspend operations right now.
Good idea.
You wanna vote on it?
Well, I don't know if we want to vote yet, but I wanted people to understand, these are classes that are not for GED or adult diplomas. These are things like country line dance and so on, so that we're not taking away from academic program if we do eliminate this.
No, we still offer adult ed, GED programs and those types of classes.
And actually, when you look at this, you went from approximately, just roughly adding it up, about 145 people participating down to 50 in the past year and a half.
And the operating costs have increased.
Correct.
So,
Maybe I should ask, do we want to make a motion or do we want to hold off?
I don't think that we need to have a vote on this. Again, we're not eliminating the program, we're just suspending operations right now until which time we feel the demand would increase. That gives us the latitude to start it up again. The other thing I wanted to update the board and everybody else on was Reading First. We were all kind of waiting by the telephone for the last month to find out how we would be funding for Reading First. First, and it's a mixed blessing. As all of you know, we had all six of our elementary buildings were fully funded through Reading First. The Reading First budget was cut at the federal level. It's a federal grant. The budget was cut by 61%. So that gave us 39% of what we used to have. That gave the state 39% of what they used to have. And so when you consider that, we didn't fare all that badly. We have 4 buildings that will be funded next year. Hale Creek will not be, and Barth will not be funded next year. And so we've placed those reading coaches back into the classroom in those 2 buildings. And because Reading First had an impact indirectly on our Title I, not on the money for Title I, but how we were going to allocate staff, i.e., if we didn't have a reading coach in the building, we wanted to make sure that we had a full-time Title I person in the building. And we'll be getting back to you with additional updates on Title I probably at the next board meeting. But again, we plan, like Sherry said, we plan very conservatively. We actually planned for losing 3 buildings with respect to Reading First. We only lost 2, so we were able to. One of the teachers that you recalled tonight was basically because we have an extra building now that will be funded. I should mention that it's not full funding like we used to have, where they get money for student materials and books. The money is paying for the Reading First coach only and for the required testing, and that's it. Gone are all the other nice bells and whistles that we use to build up our libraries and everything else. But one of the positive way to look at this, kind of glass half full analogy, is that this year we shouldn't have been funded at all. Everybody thought the grant would run out last year, so 08, 09 is kind of a bonus year for us. Now we have communications.
I received nothing indicating there's any communications or expressions from the public. If there is anyone here that wants to speak, see no hands. So we can suspend the communications and expressions from the public. And now we go back to items of interest from superintendent.
Okay, just a couple of things. You have a flyer. I think you actually have 2 if yours is like mine, the same one. Positive Behavior Support Grant that Hale Creek received through Wayne County RESA, our intermediate school district. And you have a copy of a parent communication and my response to the parents' concern. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Did you say this was Hale Creek?
Yeah, yes, Hale Creek was the recipient of Positive Behavior Support.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, now we have a portion for board members. Any board members with questions and or concerns? Mrs. Buckley.
Mr. President, this is to Carl. Do we have any update on the Mega League, or we still have to wait till after July 1st?
It'll be after July 1st. I'll have more information. I received a couple emails from some neighboring districts that they're pulling out. Those are districts that we thought were going to pull out, but I don't have anything that shows all the districts yet. That'll be sometime probably late next week.
Okay. And once we get this matter resolved with this last communication, would you let us know how that all fares out? This communication from the parent?
Thompson, whatever
Yes.
the name was.
Just let us know what the outcome is, please.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I'm doing Mr. Cooter's work here, so you
Take your time. Take your time.
This is prayer.
Mr. President, actually, I have a question going back to this track for, Sherry, were we able to contact the company who originally put the track down for us? Were they one of the 3 bidders?
That company that put the tracking is out of business,
They are,
unfortunately.
okay.
Yeah,
Figure.
right now.
Yeah, maybe fortunately is gonna.
Because I would think that for sure they would be the closest to be able to match that up since it was their work to begin with. So they're out of business.
They're out of business.
And then, my second question was, from the time that we did the first initial, and I thought I read this somewhere, Carl, maybe via email. From the time that we, originally had the layoffs until the time that we did the recalls, what changed?
Well, we were waiting for confirmation on Reading First.
So the
because we
reading
could've-
first brought back the 7.
Well, we also had some vacancies at the elementary. We were waiting to see if we had additional retirements, and we had teachers that were on leave of absence, waiting for confirmation on whether or not they're going to return. But we had, at the first layoff, the result of that, we had some classrooms that weren't staffed, and we needed to do it that way because of, once we heard from Reading First, a lot of times what happens is you end up moving multiple teachers around to put someone in a position that they're certified and qualified for. So we needed to lay off a little more than the number of vacancies that we had.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm definitely glad to see the recalls. I was just kind of wondering, so we have multiple reasons why we were able to do what we did, because I had that one concern, and I won't mention any names, where I thought, why would we do that, when logically, really, we have to have someone in that particular,
Exactly.
remember, so, okay. Well, nice to see you back. That's all I
Anyone
have,
else?
Mr. President.
Anyone else? Okay, the next item is going to be an executive session. There will be action taken after the executive session is over, and it will come under the report of the superintendent. Is that, can I handle it? All right, now we need a motion and support to go to executive session.
I'll make the motion to go to executive session.
Support.
And we need a roll call vote. Mrs. Kraut?
Yes.
Mrs. Roscoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Frayer?
Yes.
Mrs. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lanasi?
Yes.
I'll vote yes, and Peter is absent. We will be going to executive session at
53.
7:53 PM. And this will go under report of the superintendent, and it will be item N, under contract updates and changes. And we need a motion and support. Is that right now, where we're at? We need a motion and support for handling the recommendation of the compensation committee.
Do you need, want me to read this whole thing? I guess I should.
Yeah, I
Okay, I
guess.
make a motion that we approve, the recommendation of the Personnel Committee to increase contract salary by 1% for supervisors of transportation and maintenance, directors of business, personnel, and curriculum, community education and board office administrative assistants, community high school and middle school associate principals, network administrator and energy manager. In addition, network administrator and associate principals are to receive step increase. Further, that the Board of Education approves superintendent's contract amendment as presented.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Buckley, supported by Mrs. Lanasi, to accept the contract updates. Do we have any board members with questions or concerns? Seeing none,
I think we ran that meal.
we should take a vote. All those in favor of approving the contract updates, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed, say no.
No, and I would also like to comment that it only has to do with the verbiage of one of the contracts.
All right, so on a 5-to-1 vote, the motion passes. The last item that I have is adjournment.
I'm making a motion that we adjourn.
Support.
All those in favor say a yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion passes on a 6-0 vote. We are adjourned.